My name is Karla Magruder. I am the founder and president of Accelerating Circularity. I would like to welcome everybody today to our celebration of World Circular Textiles Day 2020. Today, the theme is Materials in Motion. We're celebrating the systems and the tools that keep textiles flowing through the value chain again and again. So, World Circular Textiles Days was founded in 2020. There's been amazing progress in these past 5 years when Accelerating Circularity kicked off in 2019 to help educate the industry on the reality of textile-to-textile circular systems. Our mission is to build circular systems that turn used textiles into new raw materials. We do this because we are an action-oriented nonprofit focused on textile-to-textile recycling at commercial scale through a collaborative stakeholder-led approach. And that's really critical to who we are so that we can achieve our vision of a world in which textiles are no longer wasted. So today with us are a group of industry innovators. They are believers and doers. That's a really important thing, right? There are stakeholders that are leading us, right? And we're collaborating with in circular textile-to-textile systems. So we have Steven Bethell from Bank Vogue. We have Claudia de Witte from Eastman, and we have Chad Bolick from Unifi. Each one of these folks are going to introduce themselves. Each of these companies are leaning heavily into textile-to-textile systems now. That's why we picked them to be a part of this session. So over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to talk about the progress in this past year through collaborations, the challenges, and the solutions through combined action. So future pathways and collective opportunities for where we go next to transform the industry. So let's get started. Steven, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Bank Vogue?
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. So I'm the co-founder of Bank Vogue. And Bank Vogue is a family of companies that focus. Our mission statement is innovative and relevant solutions to the crisis of stuff. So we focus on what to do with all of the secondhand clothes, or what we call post-consumer textiles. When people are finished with their clothes, they donate to a charity or a private collector. We buy that product, and then through the value of hierarchy chart, we find homes for it. So, on the Bank Vogue website, every month we publish how much we sell for resale. We also publish how much we put back into the ecosystem for recycling. And just as a highlight and things that I'm excited about this year, we've rehomed over 100 million pounds of garments, so for reuse, and we've sent over 22 million pounds of cotton to be recycled. So that's a pretty epic.
Amazing.
Those are pretty epic numbers. That's us in a short nutshell.
Pretty impressive. How about you, Claudia?
Hey, I'm Claudia de Witte. I'm the Marketing and Sustainability Director at Eastman Textiles, where we are having our Naya brand. Naya is a cellulose acetate material produced from 60% sustainably sourced wood pulp. And then for Naya Renew, we have 40% GRS certified waste materials, which we have brought to the industry back in 2020. So as Eastman, we have developed two different molecular recycling technologies, where it is really our aim to redefine the essence of waste and really create that infinite lifespan of waste materials, right? So, really creating value from waste. So with Naya Renew, it is really our aim to make sustainable textiles accessible to all, Yeah, we are on a very, very, very exciting journey. And I am looking forward to talking more today about that.
Great. And Chad from Unifi, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Carla. And Chad Bolick with Unifi. I'm Vice President of Brand Sales with Unifi. But we've been in the recycling business since really the early 2000s. First, we started with bottle to textile, but we've been in the textile to textile recycling business since 2014, 2015, and it has been an evolution for us in the amount of textile waste we can put in the product, um, and then also the quality of the fiber and yarn that we can supply with that textile waste. Last year we relaunched our Reprieve Take Back. That was at a 50% textile waste, 50% bottle content. This year, just this past August, we now have introduced our Reprieve 100% textile take back product as well. So that now is a product that is made of 100% textile waste. It's a dyeable white product. It's also available in solution dye. But that's just continuing that evolution to giving solutions that are sustainable to the textile industry that are using waste from the textile industry.
That's fantastic. I mean, one of the things that's great, right? And the idea behind having, Youth Free is the idea that you guys are all doing things now at volume, right? When we talk about there's a lot of talk about circularity as something far off in the future. But I think the great thing is you folks all have something to be incredibly proud of. I'd like to have a conversation a little bit more about the actuality of what is really happening, because I think there's a lot of talk about things that aren't happening. So I'd like to lean into that. Like Claudia, you were talking about getting the feedstocks. Steven's providing feedstocks. Chad, you're also looking at what are the materials that need to be in your products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll start there, Carla. I think what is happening. I think the excitement that we see. Obviously, are things moving as rapidly as we would like? I'll say no, they're not. But what we are seeing is there's still a commitment from the industry, there's commitment from some of the larger brands within the industry to have a portion of their materials to be, sourced from a textile to textile, whether that's cotton, whether that's polyester, whatever. They are starting to make those commitments, and when they make those public commitments, obviously it carries more weight. I think some of the hurdles that we continue to see within the industry is just it's like everything else. When we were in the bottle to textile, early 2000s, you were doing bottle to textile. What people were trying to find is what's the low-hanging fruit? What's the easiest thing to convert? What makes the most sense initially? And I think from a textile to textile standpoint, that's where we are right now. Is these brands are trying to find what is the easiest thing what are those things that we can convert easily that aren't very impactful to the bottom line, but are more impactful to the story we're trying to tell to the consumer.
Curious, Steven and Claudia, your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I can go next, right? So if we're really talking about what we are doing and what I'm most proud of for this year, I think that would be our company's continued commitment to sustainability and circularity, right? Because there is a lot going on globally, right? And it seems, and you talk about Chet, brands still have those public commitments, but it does seem that sustainability is losing a bit of momentum as critical focus for our industry, right? But I do, from our company perspective, really am proud of the fact that we stay firm in our strategy. so that we are prepared as regulation evolves, right? Because that is coming, right? There's no denying that, in a couple of years from now, regulation will kick in, right? Whether it will be Europe with the ESPR and the delegating acts, or the evolution on EPR in California, or who knows how quickly China is going to accelerate their activities around circularity. But I think, with our offering, with Naya Renew, we blend innovation with nature. We deliver, to your point, Karla, we deliver scalable solutions. We're doing it today. We are, it's not a pallet of waste that we are recycling a week, right? No, it's truckloads of waste a day, right? We have a continuous process 24/7 that is running to produce a recycled fiber. But then along the way, so that's very focused around circularity, but then also moving more towards, the rest of the spectrum on sustainability. We form strong partnerships with brands. We've embedded digital traceability across the value chain, with our partner Textile Genesis. We've launched also forward thinking from a compliance perspective with regulation. We launched our first PEV-aligned Qantas third-party reviewed life cycle assessment, covering our full product portfolio. We are continuously advancing our understanding of textiles waste streams and how we can recycle them using our molecular recycling technology. So, we didn't stop this year, right? We keep on marching forward, and we keep on, staying firm to our commitment. We also really exciting. That's the last thing to call out here. In end of August, we've announced news on a new partnership with Huafan Chemical in China to establish a joint facility to produce sustainable Naya cellulose acetate in China. And this strategic partnership also really provides us with, greater capacity. And will then also really further enhance innovation and product development capabilities of our Naya yarn, while delivering upon our brand promise of making sustainable textiles accessible to all. So I think, a lot is still happening. I'm very proud of our continued commitment to sustainability, and what we've managed to do this year.
I think, I'm impressed. Steven, I think I'm referencing Claudia's talk about the LCA that they've done. You've done some LCA work as well, haven't you, in terms of some of the processes that you're doing? And I bet, Chad, you have one too to talk about.
Yeah, I think I like the approach, Karla, that the conversation is, what are the successes right now that are happening? Like what's actually happening
Now,
as opposed to the in my world, the first thing that I'm really excited about is that the uptake of reusing is phenomenal. So phenomenal that I heard a statistic that 1 in 4 garments sold in the UK this year will be secondhand. And you think about that sentence, so reuse being the first and most important step in the circular economy, like that should be something that's absolutely celebrated, like big mic drop moment that, and in Bank Vogue, our the volume of what we do, the real push of what we are trying to push is reuse, reuse, reuse. But the second thing is, there's a big conversation about textile recycling, which is absolutely part of what the landscape of manufacturing will look like going forward. But some of this year, we have launched the 5th bag with Coach, the handbag company. In 2 weeks ago, Elle Fanning walked down the New York catwalk with a denim bag. It's a denim distress bag. And I think what's really amazing about that bag is that it was not mechanically taken down and then remade into new fiber. we used the existing fiber. We used the existing materials. We took post-consumer used jeans and cut the components, stitched them back together, and Coach made this amazing product. And I think what's amazing about that is that if you look at even architectural history in Italy as an example, and you go and look at the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you'll see that all the marble that they built it out of was marble they took from something else. You know, you go to Egypt and see some of the tombs of the kings in the Valley of the Kings. You'll see these tombs were all built from other tombs. And that Coach handbag is exactly the same idea. We're using existing resources just to make to make a new product. And what's interesting is that Coach is redefining luxury through this idea of authenticity. And I'm really engaged by that. But the science behind it is that Tapestry did do an LCA on specifically our material versus first life material. And the LCA, which was verified by 3 independent scientists, shows up to an 80% carbon reduction, up to a 98% water reduction, and up to a 68% reduction in electricity. I think that why I point to that bag, aside from the fact that Elle Fanning looks fantastic holding the bag, it should be a North Star to us that this is possible, it's happening, and it's walking down the catwalk, and you can go and buy it in the Coach store. Like, this is real. It's not, you know, a VC deck that we're pitching something for 2030. And so I give real accolades to Stuart Favors, the creative director of Coach, but also, you know, Tapestry for leaning in and doing that LCA. So doing good work, but also having the science to prove that it's good work is absolutely fantastic.
You know, it's actually, I want to make a sort of a comment. Steven was talking about earlier the hierarchy, right? It's the textile use case hierarchy. We like to call it the textile use case hierarchy, right? So we should, right? The ideal is that we reduce how much we use, and then we reuse what we have as being at the top of the hierarchy, right? What you're talking about, Steven, that's the best thing to do. You can repair things, and then recycling comes in, and then, you know, we, you know, want to, as much as we can, avoid landfill and incineration. And Steven, you can pop me for this one if you want, but eventually those things are coming down to recycling, right? We want to reduce, we want to reuse, but eventually it's coming to recycling. And we need, and the reason why I think this is a good group here is because we need all of these different opportunities for taking care of materials, right? Chad, you're working on polyester. Claudia, you work on polyester and man-made cellulosics. We need a whole suite of things. Steven's working with reuse primarily, but then also too, what are you calling it when you're actually cutting the components? That's not direct reuse, right? Like the best reuse is just taking a garment and wearing it again.
Yeah, so we, you know, we view the value hierarchy. Our job is to get the omelet and then sort the omelet out, and you know, this sort of mishmash of materials and fabrics, and obviously reuse, repair, remanufacture. Another thing that's not celebrated enough, I think, in the circular textile world is the wiper world. You know, wipers are really 22% of all secondhand clothes goes into wipers. You know, in another universe, I'm a proud member of SMART, or a board member of SMART, but there is a legion of businesses out there that are taking existing materials that can be turned into a really functional product, you know, whether it be cleaning rags or shop rags, or and they are 22% of what comes out of the secondhand trade. So it's another example of a step or a part of this whole circular world that is not talking about happening in the future. This is happening today, and frankly, in the wiper world, has happened for, you know, 100 years. it's one of those businesses that no one talks about, but is really critical to this this landscape of what do we do with existing textiles. And frankly, the and being commercial, the value hierarchy as well. So not only we have this waste hierarchy with this value hierarchy, the wiper world is 3, 4, or 5 times that of the fiber world. So it's just another moment to celebrate in circularity is this whole a tranche of an industry that should be celebrated in this circular journey.
Absolutely. Chad, I think you're working in lots of, you work with both spun yarn, filament yarns, you're bringing in, you've been working with bottles, you're transferring to textiles. I mean, I think there's so many opportunities for us to sort of grow and learn and develop.
Yeah, Carl, I mean, obviously, sustainability for Unifi has been kind of in our backbone since the early 2000s. And to your point, we're not moving away from the bottle. We're just giving a different option now as a textile to textile. What we are finding, talking a little bit, when a customer is really looking at what kind of impact are they making of the environment, and you mentioned LCA data. We've done on our staple fiber, we've done a staple fiber, fully third-party certified LCA. We're still working on our filament product, but the staple fiber, when you're comparing that to virgin, we're seeing some numbers that are better than bottle to textile. And, in terms
Cool.
of, greenhouse gases, you're seeing over a 75% reduction. Energy is over an 80% reduction. Fossil fuel consumption over an 80% reduction, and then fresh water consumption over a 65% reduction. So,
Each.
big numbers when you look at this, just the sourcing and that input material. So, that's exciting to us, and we feel that the filament product is going to be directionally in that same, that we saw on the staple fiber. We should see some similar reductions in that once we get that part fully vetted. But yeah, the thing that we're trying to do is we have the ability to offer textile or material that's made of textile waste in a multitude of different platforms. Everybody, when they think about Unifi, they think about yarn, textured yarn specifically, but there's fiber. There's also resin that we could offer it in. So, I mean, we could take it, we could turn this into a pellet or a resin, and then that could go back into molded parts. So again, one thing that I always talk to people about is don't, you don't have to, don't put yourself in a box and say this has to go back into this. You've got waste out there. We're trying to find homes for the waste, divert it from the landfill. Very, very similar to what Steven's doing. Steven's just trying to do it on a reuse more, where what we're trying to do is say, look, I can make this product into a resin, and then I can take that resin and I could sell the resin outright, or I could go into a fiber, or I could go direct back into a yarn, really whatever the customer need is. And that's exciting to us because depending on what we're doing with it, I may be able to handle different types of contaminants within that waste. So, you know, I always tell people that we're still very early in this textile to textile recycling world. And what is not recyclable today will be recyclable in 5 years. The evolution is coming. But there are companies like Unifi, like Eastman, from a recycler standpoint, who are at scale now that can offer you a solution that we can work together on and give the consumer, give the brand, the consumer, whoever, an option to say, hey, I want to recycle this and I want to do it now. We're ready to do that. And so, again, I'm mentioning Eastman because they're partners of ours too. They're ready to do it too. So, that's part of the thing that I always get excited about is, hey, we've got some people that are ready to go to scale at this. We need the commitment to continue to have people the pull through to have people wanting to use what we can produce at scale.
I mean, I think that's actually the whole point of this conversation today is the people who can do it now, right? I love that. I'm also curious, because Chad, both you and Claudia from Eastman, Steve, you're doing this reuse, but you're also providing feedstock to people, right? And so polyester, I mean, I guess both Chad and Claudia, you're looking at polyester feedstocks. How do we get that to them in the volumes that they need it? Is there too much demand for your other work, Stephen, or is there material for Chad and Claudia?
Can I jump in on that real quick?
Sure.
I mean, Stephen's actually approached me with material. And again, I think part of what we have right now is, again, there's a demand portion that I need the demand for the output material that I can make to consume the input material that Stephen can supply to me. So again, in some cases, I'm like, right now, I don't need the material because I don't have enough output demand. And again, this is where the whole purpose of, hey, guys, we're ready to go at scale now, work with us on developing products that use the fiber, the yarn, the resin that I can produce that use this waste. Because Stephen has actually approached me in the past and said, hey, I've got this material. Can you use it? It qualifies fine. It's just a matter of supply versus demand on my end right now.
So is everybody experiencing that? One of the things that we were looking at is what are the biggest challenges today? Is it demand? Sounds like we've got the technology.
It's funny, Karla. I want to steer back. I'm gonna do what a politician does when he hears a question he doesn't like. He just talks about something else.
Go for it,
Because I
Steve.
think this World Textiles Day, this is a moment to celebrate what's happened this year.
Yep.
And I feel like I want to keep coming back to the fact, we did a collab this year with a brand called Sea Salt. It's a company out of Cornwall in the UK. We've done, so there's a whole range of apparel made from existing apparel. The product not only hit the shop floor, not only got great press, but sold out immediately. And to speak to Chad's conversation about how do we create demand, we create demand by doing these projects and demonstrating that this is by operating in the circular economy, you're not just making exciting product, but you're making product that will sell quickly. And so how do we solve the demand problem? We solve the demand problem by making amazing product that it hits the shop floor and it's gone. And I feel as if whether it be the product we've made with Coach or with Wrangler or with Sea Salt, those are just demonstrations to the brands, because ultimately a merchandiser needs to have the courage to spend the company's money on product. And whether it's using Eastman fiber or unified fiber, they need to make engaging product. And I feel like this year, there's some great use case scenarios of showing, holy man, that Elle Fanning looks fantastic. That bag looks amazing in her hand. Those celebration moments, I think, are really. I also want to throw one other thing just to be a contrarian.
I wish we had the bag here to show everybody.
Unfortunately, I'm low on the totem pole. I have to wait like everybody else until the spring 26 to be able to line up in the shop to get it. But another thing though is that I'm going to be a little bit of a headerite and say I am exuberant about the work that Eastman. I mean, exuberant about what Unifi is doing, but I also want to be. If you walk into our Cold Drop store in London, the Beyond Retro store, right hanging behind the cash register is a jumpsuit from 1972, the Rolling Stones concert. It was obviously a technician's jumpsuit, and it's like it says on the back Rolling Stones World Tour 1972. And as we just have these exciting conversations about textile and textile recycling, which it's going to be great for the landscape. It's going to be good for the environment. But I also want to just keep reminding the successes that we're having in the resale space and the importance of preserving our collective heritage. I'd hate to have seen that 1972 Rolling Stones jumpsuit end up in one of the Willy Wonka machines that are being made in the world right now.
So I'm going to go to Claudia and Chad and ask them, what's the coolest garment that was made in your product this year? What was made in yours that you hope that in 10 years, 15, 20 years lands in one of Steve's secondhand stores?
Claudia, do you want to start? Go ahead.
Yeah, so from a commercialized brand perspective, right? Because honestly, Carla, I think Naya Renew is out there for 5 years, right? So I think we've managed to really, we are collaborating with a lot of global brands. Naya Renew is being adopted across, from, mainstream to high street to even, to really, designer type of spaces. So I'm having a hard time, but I will circle back on your question. I'm having a hard time to pick one because we have a lot of great examples of garments that are being produced by Naya Renew. I think our challenge. So I'm first going to answer that question, and then I will circle back. I think the biggest challenge for us now, again, circling back to the making sustainable textiles accessible to all, right? That's our aspiration. So now we're seeing, yes, we see great examples, right? The momentum is there, but it's about moving from a capsule collection fiber to a seasonal fiber to a core collection fiber, right? I think in the end, if we really want to create, if we want to have breakthrough impact, we need to be in those core collections. And I think there, again, we have the skill, we have the solution, but then you start talking about different things around price, right? And the expectation that is out there around price parity, and there's a whole other set of dynamics that come into play, which we are facing now, right? So that on the demand side. I think on the feedstock side, what we have been seeing over the last couple of years is we've always said that Naya Renew is being produced using a variety of waste materials. It's primarily post-consumer carpets from California, where it's proven what the impact is of an EPR scheme, right? If you have an EPR scheme and what that does to creating the infrastructure that is needed to have consistent and reliable supply. But we would love to, start developing claims saying, hey, Naya Renew is produced using X% of apparel waste. But today, that's not possible, right? We don't have that consistency in supply, especially post-consumer, very heterogeneous. You run into different challenges from a qualification specification process. And we're having a lot of discussions with brands to explain why we cannot meet their needs, right? And I think it would also just really help us if we get better aligned on like, hey, what is possible today, right? What is now, and what is future state, right? From a meeting needs perspective. So that on the previous question. Coolest garment produced of. Yeah, so this is a fun thing because it's actually not in the shop. But we entered the denim space with Naya staple, with our staple fiber, and we attended Kingpin's New York for the first time this year, and we partnered with a designer, and he just created. So this is not in store, but he created a fantastic Naya jacket with all these like text around Naya circularity now, and bringing denim inside out, and all the comfort and all the advantages that Naya brings into the denim space. And those to me, I think, were amazing garments. Yeah. So
great. Hope they end up in one of Steven's stores sometime.
But I think just a fantastic moment entering a new space, denim, as with Naya. So that was coming top of mind quickest.
It's great. Chad, what about you? What's the coolest? Because you're working in like you said, all different spaces. So what's a really cool program that you guys have had?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in the last 2 years, I mean, again, we've got a lot of programs that are in works that unfortunately where they sit right now, we can't really talk about them openly, but two that have been that have already launched, two that were publicly talked about by the people who launched them, specific around, reprieve take back. I don't know if they'll end up in Steven stores, but they're exciting just because they kind of touch different areas. The first one being Walmart launched a Joy Spun sock that was made of reprieve take back. That was exciting because again, you're in a space within Walmart in a sock brand that is a pretty large sock brand for them. So that was exciting.
So it's also
Um,
really high volume, right?
yeah, yeah. And then the other one being, and this was more of a capsule program that we did, but it really does show more of the circularity piece because, back during the pandemic or right post the pandemic, we worked with New Balance, to recycle their New York Marathon t-shirts and the 2024, I think it was 2024, 2023 New York City Marathon t-shirt was actually made of textile, reprieve take back that was made of waste from those t-shirts. So, that is pretty cool that, we could say, hey, they put the waste in and we gave them a yarn that went back into a race t-shirt for that same race. So
That's cool.
those are exciting. And again, I think for us, the excitement is still around, probably what's to come because, again, it's to Stephen's point, you've got to be able you drive and you continue to have, you drive interest in this by telling these types of stories. I mean, by giving these examples, by these little capsules, because then people are like, well, wow, that they can do it. Why can't I?
Sure.
Um, and I think that's, the more that happens, the more that the industry figures out how to communicate the textile to textile input to the consumer, and the more the consumer starts asking and understanding what they're getting, I think the more you're going to see a drive and demand for this product.
Actually, and I should have it or be wearing it, but we actually have a denim skirt that was made. Actually, it's made with Steven's feedstock. And so it's 100% cotton. There was an element of post-consumer cotton, post-industrial cotton, and Target made these skirts. And I was actually wearing it last week when I was at New York Climate Week. So, like you said, that's a fun story. It's nice to have product that you can show people. And people are like, really? They
Yeah.
can't believe that there's actually textile waste. So that the ability of these things to actually function is certainly one of the exciting things. And then to your point, Chad, and actually it'd be great for everybody to weigh in on this about so if the future is really where it's at, what are we seeing in the future? What's going to be what next year? If you're talking about World Circular Textile Days, what do you think is going to be different next year versus this year?
Karla, let me jump in and say the one thing about the fashion cycle, from the time you supply a recycled fiber, to the time it's spun, to the time it's designed and waved. And so and to Chad's point, we've got projects in the oven and we're sitting there, we're turning the oven light on, looking at the cake rising. And I can at least say in the Bank Vogue cake oven, I've got the light on, I'm looking at some cakes that are rising, and it's going to be a really great year next year when we have this call next year and to say, okay, what have you come out with? Because it's amazing. There's an Austrian expression that says no one knows how much work goes into your own soup. The amount of work that Eastman puts into Naya, the amount of work that Unifi puts into their blends, and the amount of chemistry, and then you've got a product. there's a lot there, but it's amazing the life cycle that it takes to get it to a shop floor. But at least and so I feel as this is not there's just a ramp up of time. But I can proudly say from a Bank Vogue perspective, this year shipping 22 million pounds of post-consumer and cotton to a recycler, that's going to make a lot of product. And won't be a capsule collection, but rather will be mainline product. I can also say that building on the relationships that we've had over this year with Coach and with Sea Salt, the Beyond Retro stores. I just really a crazy thing. Last week in Beyond Retro, we had a Sutton from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in our store. And I feel like one needs to take a pause that if you've got a Housewives from Beverly Hills celebrating reuse in a shop in London, that's like this is a mind shift that's happening. And I just want to celebrate those moments. And you can see the excitement of more of that happening across Europe and in the US.
And actually, I would say that, there's that mind shift that's happening with the reuse. And then for us to understand also and learn that we want our new clothes to be using our old clothes as the feedstock, right? Because eventually, like I said, I think, Steve, your stuff is coming our way at some point in time. It might take us, for some product, more time than others. But let's hope that they don't end up in landfill and incineration. Claudia, what would you say is going to happen in next year? What are you going to have to celebrate? You're on mute. Claudia, unmute. Classic.
Classic, right? No, we will stay firm to our strategy. Hopefully a lot to celebrate. I love all the stories, right, that are being shared today. We will continue with pushing these demonstration. We will celebrate every capsule collection, right, or every seasonal collection that we are being adopted, right, because those are the little wins, right, that will get us to, in the end, those larger core collection items and adoptions. We will stay firm. We will work on more demo programs like we've done with Patagonia, like we've done with dbrand in the past. There are a couple of exciting things in the pipeline there. Again, really pushing the boundaries and understanding the specifications around textiles waste for our recycling processes. To me, I would really say, come on, Europe, with the ESPR and all the delegating acts, right? All the conversations around recycled content targets, around, should that be on a product level? Should that be on a portfolio level? I would really see more clarity, that we're celebrating next year the clarity around regulation, and that will proven, or that will be a true accelerator, right, for our industry and the health of our industry. We will celebrate, by the way, that's also another nice thing to share. So we've launched our NAIA sustainability goals 5 years ago, and this year, so in a couple of weeks from now, we will mark like the 5-year milestone of that launch of our sustainability goal, and we are actually releasing a progress update there, a very open, a very transparent progress update, which we will talk about, some of the successes that we've had over the last 5 years. We're also going to talk about the things that remain unfinished, right? Because we didn't meet all of our goals. And we're also going to launch a renewed roadmap for the work ahead. So that's exciting. But again, it's really about continued commitment to sustainability, really about circularity and to the health of our industry.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Chad, what about you?
And Carl, I think, touching on what everybody else has said from my standpoint, I mean, obviously, like I said, we've got a lot of programs that are in the works. So seeing those to fruition, to where I can, instead of listing out two, the next time, if, next
Your
year, this
goal for
time,
next year is 10?
yeah, we'll talk about 10 or, something like that. I think, from a Unifi standpoint, again, it's still, we've always talked about the number of bottles recycled. Now we're actually talking, from a circularity standpoint about the number of t-shirts that we're recycling. Telling that story a little differently, setting goals around that. I think just having, for us, it's continuing to evolve into what we can offer the customer from a textile to textile waste stream. So, again, I talked about chip resin, I talked about fiber, I talked about yarn. We have an insulation product that is made of recycled textile waste. So, that's something that we also have moved into. And for me, I'm just excited about, again, you're seeing these brands that are starting to make public statements. You're seeing these brands that are starting to make commitments, and we understand the cycle. To Stephen's point, you know, you're in a conversation today, you're not going to see something in market for, you know, depending on where you are in that conversation, 18 to 24 months. But again, just the continual interest in this. And I think the more we educate the consumer about what they're getting, about where that waste is coming from, the more they're going to start asking for it. And then that, I think that's gonna help. The legislation piece, I'm cautiously optimistic, cautiously excited about that, because obviously there's some, you know, legislation is always one way to get someone to do something. You either incentivize or you punish. Those are the two things to get somebody to do something, unfortunately. And that's kind of where we sit today. So we'll see how it all goes there.
Great. Well, it's really interesting what you guys are saying. If I look back at the year for Accelerating Circularity, we've done a lot of what I would think as foundational work that will support all of these businesses, right? One of the things that we're doing is we kicked off a material flow studies, and we really want to see how used textiles get moved around. What's in those used textiles? Are they better for reuse? Are they better for textile to textile recycling? Where do they flow to? And how, if they aren't going to be reused, how can they best be used? So that's some work that we kicked off this year, and I'm excited to see what happens when we get a full complement of information. We also are about to launch a white paper on mass balance in textile to textile recycling. And again, it sort of lets us understand and helps education. Chad, you brought up the term of education, helps the industry understand how the textile to textile recycling can work and why there is the need for mass balance, because it's used today, right, in the existing textile market, and how this new market shouldn't be so different than previous markets. And we visited facilities in the United States, both in LA and in North Carolina, where we're seeing new technologies and opportunities for creating textile to textile businesses to be able to sort, right? Right now, and Steven, you can talk to this, in the United States, we typically, when we're collecting used textiles, we're shipping out textiles unsorted. Right? So if we want those textiles sorted for used clothing stores, maybe that doesn't work out so well here. And if we want the materials for recycling, it doesn't happen because we export bales as we get them. So maybe that's a need that the industry needs. And then finally, we just had an event in New York at Climate Week where we kicked off a white paper called Rags to Revenue. How do we take textiles and make revenue out of them, and potentially for systems in the United States. So as we wind up this conversation here, I'm wondering if anybody has any last thoughts that they'd like to say about, what do you need for others? What do you want this community who's interested in world World Circular Textiles Day to know about you and the business and circularity? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. Why not? For me, I think what I want people to know is, and I'm a runner, so I use these analogies all the time. We're in an ultra marathon. We're not in a sprint. This is this is something. Don't get discouraged if you have a failure somewhere along the way, because we're all going to have failures along the way in this process. Continuing to strive for for the end goal, and continue to look for, celebrate the small successes, because regardless of the size, celebrate the successes, talk about them, and those successes will go from small to large as you continue to work down that road. So just, it's a process and it's going to take time. But there are companies out there today that can help you get this process started and at scale. And three of them are sitting on this webinar right now. So, again, if you have questions, the four of us who are on this webinar, we're happy to always get on a call and with anybody and talk to them and say, hey, this is what we would do, or this is how we can help you. Or if I can't help you, maybe Steven can, or if I can't help you, maybe Claudia can. Again, it's a teamwork. That's what's going to solve the problem.
It's absolutely about collaboration.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more, Chad.
Yeah.
Claudia, any closing words?
No, well, just echoing everything that Chad just said. I think fully agree with him. Let's stay committed first and foremost, right? Let's stay on the trajectory that we are on. Keep on collaborating, challenging each other. Challenge each other, and keep pushing, right? Really drive towards greater adoption of the already existing technologies, right? Have the wins, celebrate the wins. And that will fuel future innovations, right? I think it's the same for Eastman, right? We have all these great solutions available today. The adoption will drive then further investments in next generations of those technologies. So fully agree with Chet there.
Great. And Steven, I'm sure you have something that you're going to be talking about. What do you want the community to know?
I think I'm completely aligned with both Chad and Claudia that we need to celebrate the wins, and this year there have been real wins, and there are certainly there's turbulence in the air, but I like the line that Tom Hanks was asked. What thing did you wish you knew when you were young that you don't know now? And and he said, this too will pass. At the end of the day, if we keep our eye on that long game, that we understand we need to be good stewards of this planet, that there are real success stories that are happening in front of us. The reuse is up massively, that there is the pathways, whether it be with Unifi or Eastman or the Bank Vogue, there is path to do this. It's doable, and it is being done at scale. So I think it's like, now we just, need to roll up our sleeves and do the work, but it's possible. And I feel like that's the celebration here today.
Right. Just lean into it, right? Capabilities are there. The people are here to do it now. Accelerating Circularity exists to help make these connections and collaborate. So if anybody would like to reach out, I'm sure we can connect you with the people that are necessary to take your next steps. So thank you very much for your time today. Celebrate World Circular Textile Day, and next year we'll have a lot more to talk about. In addition to the stuff that we've told you today, it's possible. It can happen now. It can happen at scale. Lean into it.